Today, I'll be giving you a walkthrough through the installation of QuietCss and some basic use of the program. I'm going to start by going to the add-on website and then clicking Add to Firefox to start the installation of the extension. Now you'll see that a little pop-up appears that says what the required permissions are, as well as the data collection privacy policies. One of the permissions is that it'll access your data for all websites. This is necessary so that QuietCss can make changes to any website you're currently trying to use the product for. None of the data that is being shown on the website itself will be sent to me or transmitted anywhere except for being locally on your computer. The second thing is QuietCss needs to be able to access your browser tabs. This is so that it can know which website you are currently looking at, and so that when you switch tabs within the web browser, the QuietCss sidebar will be able to update with the appropriate rules. Now let's go ahead and click Add. Now you'll see QuietCss was added, and now we have a new sidebar. This sidebar is a standard feature of Firefox. Usually it's hidden on the side, and if you click on the top left icon right here, you'll be able to hide that sidebar or show it. This is where QuietCss lives within that sidebar. It gives you the ability to see what rules are currently being loaded for the particular website and allows you to make edits once you select an element, which I cannot do on the add-ons Mozilla website as it's protected, or you can draw blinds to block certain elements of the website. I'd like to show you a few examples of how to use QuietCss to improve your web browsing experience. I want to start by showing you one of the more basic features and then work up from there. So I'll be starting with how to draw blinds, which are essentially boxes that block elements on a web page. Now I find that on LinkedIn, the whole right bar is very distracting to me. I pretty much never find that this information is useful, but I do find that I gravitate towards looking at that, and it's kind of like an extra bit of effort for me to have to look away from it. On the QuietCss panel, we have two tabs here, Styles and Blinds. Blinds is what we want to be clicking on here to then be able to draw a box. So we'll click on this button, Draw New Blind, which allows us to have our cursor turn into a crosshair. And then if you press the left click button and then click and drag, you'll see that a box is being shown. This will be where the blind will be located on the web page once you release that mouse button. Now we have our selection made. If you find that that selection is not exactly where you want it to be, which in my case, it's not covering the right bar, so I'm going to adjust it there. Make that adjustment. And then I want to go over to the left side and give it a name so I know what I'm currently covering, which is the sidebar. I want to give it a color that more closely fits the LinkedIn theme instead of being kind of like a dark blue. So it's white with a little bit of a gray added to it. That looks pretty good. I want the pattern to be a diagonal pattern. And then I want the position of the box to be sticking to the viewport so that as I scroll around on the web page, if I scroll up or down, then the box will stay on that part of the page. Go ahead and save it. And now you can see that all the content there is being blocked by that blind. Now you can see that the saved blind goes underneath the saved blinds section, and you're able to either remove it by hitting the delete blind button, or you can toggle it. You can toggle it so you can see what kind of content is underneath. This can be useful for times when, say, like recommended videos in YouTube are not always something you want to be looking at, but occasionally you do want to be able to reference that again and kind of see that content when you're curious about it. Before we move forward to our next example, I would like to give you some insight into what it looks like if a blind is sticking to the viewport or sticking to the page. We will put one blind on the left that'll be sticking to the page, give it a color of green, and then the next blind will be sticking to the viewport. This way you'll be able to see what that difference is. We'll give that a red color. Now, right now, they don't look very different, but once you start to scroll on the page, this is when the difference becomes apparent. The one that is sticking to your viewport is kind of like sticking to what the browser is viewing at the moment. And then sticking to the page is having the blind be stuck directly to the content of the web page. And that's the difference there. There are some web pages like LinkedIn where the blind is not able to actually be stuck to the page, and then you'll be able to see that something like this will happen, where I have the blind set up, I have it positioned so it sticks to the page, but even though it says it's sticking to the page, as I scroll up and down, it will not actually stay with the content on the page. That's something to keep in mind. So we'll go ahead and delete this blind and then move on to the next example of editing content directly on the page instead of drawing boxes over it. We're going to navigate over to the Styles tab of QuietCss, and then we're going to hit Select Element, which gives us a crosshair, and then as we're hovering over different elements on the web page, you'll see that a box will appear. This box is letting you get an idea of what element you are targeting on the web page and kind of what are you going to be making edits to once you click to select it. Now, once again, I'm not a fan of the right side, the recommended items. So I'm going to hover over a part of the right side where I have the box covering all of the content that I find distracting. And then I'll go ahead and click. So I make that selection. And then I'll see on the side, we have the name that I want to change to be right sidebar. The selector is already done for us. That was determined once we selected the element on the page. And then this CSS is the style rule that we will be applying to that web page element. Here it's setting the display to none so that it is no longer appearing on the web page. Important makes it so that the element is more likely to be actually removed because we're making our style change be considered important. And then force reapply makes it so that if this particular element on the web page is continually being deleted and then reinserted onto the web page, then our style will be reapplied once the element exists once again. There we go. I hit save, and now you can see that that element on the web page is no longer existing. Just like the blind, you can delete it or you can disable it. And if you do want to make edits, you can click on that particular rule and then say, if I wanted to change the name, I can go ahead and do that, then hit save, and you'll see the change appear within the saved rule. Next up, I'd like to show you an example of another website, YouTube, that has a recommended video sidebar that I also am not a fan of. So we can do very similar to what we did on Stack Overflow. Hover over the sidebar so we can try to target the area of all the recommended videos. Go ahead and click it, display none, and save. Now, in this case, there is an issue where not only are the videos hidden, but also all the comments are hidden. This could be a case where you would like to re-enable and disable it as you're making use of this video, or you can try to change the way that you're doing the selection. So that didn't quite work for me. I can delete the rule and then see if I can do a better selection. Say like maybe if I move it over here, but I'm not really getting that whole outline that I want to see like right here. Or what you can try to do is hide the one element and then see that there's additional stuff you want to hide, which in this case is right here, this little advertisement here of related. Go ahead and save that. And then you see that those two things are covering up all you want, but a little more than you would like. So now let's try to redisplay the contents by disabling that rule. And then if you look at that, we have our comments back, but the right side recommended videos are still off of the web page. Since we're not really wanting this rule to exist, you can go ahead and click on it to delete it. And we now want to keep this related video rule. So let's give it a name that is more understanding of what the rule is intended to do. Hide right sidebar videos. Save that. I also want to point out that because QuietCss is able to listen to which tab you are currently on, if you are to switch the tab, then the rules being shown for the particular site are updated right when you change the tab. So here we have the right sidebar videos, and here we have the right sidebar edit for Stack Overflow. The next feature I'd like to show is how with QuietCss you can not only hide elements on a web page or make them no longer display, you can also make use of this CSS styling to do things like make the font easier to read within a web page. Here's a web page that I found that has honestly a really bad background font. So we're going to go ahead and figure out how we can change that color so that it is more visible to us, so the text is more visible. Now the way that I will start to do this is first I'm going to draw a blind and then use that to kind of determine what color is good to set the background to. So we have our blind, we have colors. I feel like something that's a dark purple would show up well here. And it's a 139, 48, 163. So we have that. Go ahead and draw that. Now we want to select the element. So here I'm selecting the background of the page. And then we are giving it a new background color of an RGB value 139. I forgot what it was. Let me double check. 139, 48, 163. There we are. Go ahead and apply that. And there you go. You can see that this text is now fully readable. And this is just one way that you can increase the usability and accessibility of a website. You also could select some text and then make it so that the font size is larger. So we'll go ahead and set that to like 5 element size. And obviously that's a bit large, so we'll go more for like a 2.5. And once you find the style you like, it's a good idea to name that style just so you remember what you're making an edit to. Go save that. And this was just a test style, so I'll go ahead and delete that. And I'll delete this blind as it's no longer being needed. I also want to point out that we drew this blind over here on the LinkedIn page. Now, if I go to, say, my main LinkedIn site, that blind still exists. Also, if I go to another tab on LinkedIn, that blind still exists as well. So this way you can make changes that affect the entire site. If you do want to have it influence only a specific web page on the website, then you can edit the target site /URL to be more specific. Like if I wanted to only influence the feed, I can click here, make sure I'm pasting in the URL with the feed, and then go ahead and save that. All right, those are all the features I wanted to show for this demo. Let me know if you have any other questions, and thank you for watching.